Welcome to a field trip to Earth. I have some fun things to share with you. The 1936 Mercedes-Benz 500K Special Roadster, a mid-century modern mechanical typewriter. Scrooge McDuck. Everything in life is somewhere else, and you get there in a car. Imagine a car that's so fast it can go over 100 miles an hour. That's like a cheetah running at top speed. The Mercedes-Benz 500K Special Roadster, built way back in 1936, is one of these amazing cars. This car was a Grand Tourer GT, which means it was designed for long, comfortable trips at high speed. It had a long hood, curvy fenders, and a short, round tail. With its convertible top, it was the perfect car for a sunny day drive. The K in 500K stands for compressor, which is a German word for supercharger. A supercharger is like a big air pump that helps the engine breathe better, giving it more power. The 500K's engine could produce 160 horsepower. That might not sound like a lot today, but back then it was like having a whole herd of horses under the hood. To help you understand how much power that is, 1 horsepower can lift about 550 pounds, something around the size of a big bear, at least 1 foot off the ground in just 1 second. So as a comparison, the 500K's 160 horsepower engine could lift something that weighs as much as an adult camel. The 500K's engine had 8 cylinders all lined up in a straight row. This made the engine run very smoothly, but it also made it very long. That's why the 500K has such a long hood. These cars were very rare and expensive, so that's why they were usually owned by the rich and famous. They were like the sports cars that movie stars drive today. For comparison, today's fastest car, like the ones in Formula 1, can go over 220 miles per hour and have engines that produce around 1,000 horsepower. That's more than 6 times the power of the 500K. It's like having the power to lift 6 heavy camels all at once. If my doctor told me I only had 6 minutes to live, I wouldn't brood. I'd type a little faster. Imagine a time before computers, when people used a special machine called a typewriter to write. A typewriter has keys like a piano, but each key makes a different letter or symbol appear on a paper. When you press a key, it strikes an ink-filled ribbon, leaving the character on the page. The paper is wrapped around a roller called a platen. After each letter is typed, the platen moves the paper to the left, so the next character appears in the right spot. When you reach the end of a line, a bell rings to let you know it's time to pull a lever that returns the platen to the beginning and moves the paper up for a new line. The typewriter you see here has a simple, clean design without any fancy decorations. This style is called mid-century modern. It's colored Caledon, which is a pale green like the gemstone jade. Steve Guinness, a big fan of Lego bricks, designed this typewriter. He combined his love for building with Lego and his interest in old-fashioned typewriters to create this special model. The keys on a typewriter are arranged in a special way called QWERTY. Some people think this layout helps you type faster, while others believe it was made to slow typists down so the keys wouldn't get stuck together. Writing by hand can be slow and tiring. Most people can only write about 20 or 30 words a minute, but with a typewriter they can type much faster, around 50 or 80 words a minute. That means if someone wanted to type all of Shakespeare's works, it would take them about a month on a typewriter, but over 2 months by hand. Typewriters were especially important for newspapers and businesses. Reporters used them to write articles quickly so people could read the latest news. Companies relied on typewriters for clear, easy-to-read documents like contracts. Later, electronic typewriters were invented, replacing moving parts with digital ones. Then computers became more popular because they could do more things than just type. Their legacy is the keyboard we use on computers today. The QWERTY layout is as old as the typewriter. The first man gets the oyster, the second man gets the shell. Scrooge McDuck is a fascinating character, a Scottish-born American duck who's 75 years old. He's not your average duck, though. Scrooge is always dressed very formally, with a tall, flat-crowned black silk hat on his head. On his beak, he wears a special type of glasses called a pince-nez, which pinch the nose instead of having earpieces. Scrooge's outfit includes a blue frock coat that reaches just above his knees, and on his feet he wears spats, a type of footwear that protects shoes and socks from getting muddy or wet. Spats also make him look quite stylish. In his hand, Scrooge carries a walking stick, perhaps like the one Benjamin Franklin once received as a gift when he was ambassador to France. Now, Scrooge's name sounds familiar. That's because he's named after Ebenezer Scrooge, a character from the famous Christmas story, A Christmas Carol, written by Charles Dickens. Scrooge McDuck is an incredibly rich and successful business duck who loves going on adventures and treasure hunts. He worked his way up from humble beginnings as an immigrant, much like real-life Scottish-American businessman Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie helped make the American steel industry really big in the late 1800s and became one of the richest Americans ever. Scrooge McDuck has a motto: sharper than the Sharpies, smarter than the Smarties, and tougher than the Toughies. This means he's always trying to be clever, intelligent, and brave. And now here's a fun story. Wow, Uncle Scrooge, that's a really impressive roadster. It's a nice car, but I think the red cars are always cooler. How do you make all your money, Uncle Scrooge? Well, lads, I use my business skills and empathy to understand what people need that they don't already have. Then I go out and figure out how to provide it for them and make money in the process. It's not as easy as it sounds, Uncle Scrooge. It is if you're sharper than the Sharpies, smarter than the Smarties, and tougher than the Toughies. What kind of sucker falls for your schemes? They aren't schemes, Donald. They're legal business opportunities. I'll prove it to you. Give me a few days and I'll come up with a new idea and come back with more money. Listen up, I've got a brilliant idea. Elderly folks on fixed incomes who don't know each other can pool their resources in a fund for emergencies. It'll be an informal mutual aid society. The pooled money will earn over time by being invested in other places. If they have an emergency, they can use the profit generated to help. They can supply a down payment to get started, and I'll manage the money and send them monthly updates. As soon as you write up the contract, I'm going to get investors. Hey there, Einstein, I've got an idea for you. It's a way to achieve peace of mind by pooling resources with others to cover unexpected emergencies. I have some questions. Will there be a fee? Is it covered by regulatory oversight? Yes, there'll be a fee. And no, it's not covered by regulatory oversight. It might work in theory, but it doesn't seem practical. I'll pass. Galileo, I've got a great idea. A fund for pooling resources to cover unexpected emergencies. There'll be a small management fee for lawyers and proper audits to avoid problems with regulators. So you're going to be at the center of all this activity, and all your investors are going to have no choice but to obey the laws you control. Can people pull their money out of your orbit whenever they want? They'll need to keep the investment for a certain amount of time for it to make money, and I'll be the one to manage it because I have the most experience. It's too Scrooge-centric and feels too confining. I'll pass. Gandalf, have I got an idea for you? Speak, friend. The investment will be untouchable for a certain time, but then investors can take their initial investment and share of the profit. There'll be an annual shareholders meeting where everyone can have their say. As a wizard without a family, you could spend your golden years working instead of enjoying a much-needed rest. Instead, when you're ready, you could retire to some land in Hobbiton and maybe grow a beautiful garden. I'd like to join, but I don't have any money. I can accept the magical item instead. I'll give you money for the item and hold it as a bond of good faith. All right, I'll sign the contract. This gold horse statue is a Shadowfax collar. I don't need it now that the necromancer of Dol Guldur is dead. I'll miss its beauty, but then in emergency I can whistle for Shadowfax if I need him. Even though the whistle isn't easy. Merlin, you're right. A gold sword is not fit for a king. It's far too soft to fight with. Please change it back. In a minute, Arthur. Let me answer the door. Merlin, have I got an idea for you? Can have their say. If you don't have money, I can accept a magical item instead. As a wizard with such a needy family, you could spend your golden years in endless campaigns instead of enjoying time to study magical mysteries. Well, Arthur is a good person, but isn't that bright and always seems to be in a fight for justice. However, I am concerned about the safety of the investment. As the richest business duck in the world, I also have the world's most advanced and secure safe. I'll sign the contract. All right, I'll give you Arthur's sister Mogaze's crystal ball. She's pregnant now, and will be too concerned with raising the baby to cause trouble. The Patronus spell is a very critical spell to learn. I'm not very good at teaching it. Normally Snape would teach it, but he's away on mysterious business. Dumbledore, there's someone in the duck form to see you, and I can accept a magical item instead. As the richest business duck in the world, I also have the world's most advanced and secure safe. The timing is perfect. I'll sign the contract. I need to move my stuff out of Gringotts. The security has grown pitiful. Also, things feel weird at work. Everyone is on edge, and the ministry is pestering me constantly to change the curriculum. As a test, I'll give you a sword that can find and destroy a Horcrux. Someone attacked one of my Horcruxes recently, and I think I know who, but I can't tell you his name. As usual, I was successful and made another small fortune. Here are the contracts as proof. Wow, Uncle Scrooge, Gandalf, Merlin, Dumbledore joined? That's amazing! And what's the angle? There's no angle. I use my business skills and empathy to understand what people need that they don't already have, and I figured out how to provide it to them and make money in the process. Let me explain everything I did. That's so cool, Uncle Scrooge. But still no red car, huh? Bummer. Those are the best. We need to leave for school. I'll catch up shortly. What really happened? Everything's on the up and up, but Dumbledore was killed by a disgruntled employee. Merlin got sealed up in a crystal by Arthur's angry sister. And it turns out that Gandalf died fighting a horrible monster. Everyone knows you don't come back from fighting a Balrog. On the bright side, I have a new idea for a brass whistle to call horses that I'll sell in Rohan. How are your retirement plans looking? Are you interested in peace of mind? What you going to do with a magical item? I work in law enforcement. These will help me track down a violent and mentally unstable escapee. It's a pleasure doing business with you. Night.